I believe it is round
CSI.
2 for Ms. Donovan, the National Women in Law Enforcement Association.
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you.
Please begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Donovan. The scheduled speaker, Angie Rivers, is a police constable with Waterloo Regional Police. Angie is a representative plaintiff in the current class action lawsuit against the service, and she's a founding member of the National Women in Law Enforcement Association. Angie suffers from depression and PTSD resulting from her employment at WRPS and was not well enough to attend today. She has asked me to present on her behalf so this critical matter can be addressed. Section 115, the section dealing with disabled officers, is of critical importance. Passed as is, police chiefs can demote and fire injured and disabled officers for no reason other than that they are disabled. When people hear of this, the consistent reaction is that of shock and disbelief. The fact is, under the current PSA, chiefs already have the power to fire an officer for disability under the current Section 47. Under the current PSA, the chief must first hold a public hearing and consider the evidence of 2 qualified doctors before the officer is dismissed. In the proposed legislation, these requirements are removed. The chief will not be compelled to hold a hearing or hear the evidence of medical professionals. The officer can only request an arbitration after the fact. Will these arbitrators be well versed in the limitations of a first responder suffering from PTSD? For an officer who suffers from mental health issues and who struggles to leave the house or place a phone call, responding to a notice that they are being terminated within 60 days and preparing a case for arbitration will be a prohibitive task. Angie Rivers represents hundreds of officers who could be fired after this legislation is passed, and the catalyst of her PTSD is the way she was treated while working for the Waterloo Regional Police. Is it fair to continue to give the police service the power to terminate her employment? Due to the culture of policing, officers are extremely hesitant to admit to and seek treatment for mental health issues. This legislation will undo the progress that has been made destigmatizing mental health in first responders. Recent events, such as the apology from Commissioner Bob Paulson following the settlement of the RCMP class action lawsuit, prove that the culture within police services is what is keeping qualified female officers from applying to the profession or remaining in the profession. In response to the $167 million class action against the Waterloo Regional Police, the service's lawyer stated in a press release that affidavits filed by the plaintiffs contained untrue, exaggerated, misleading, and/or defamatory allegations. In Chief Brian Larkin's sworn affidavit filed in December 2017, he called the allegations unfounded without any investigation. Unfounded is a police reporting classification meaning a crime never occurred and was not attempted. An investigation by the Globe and Mail's Robin Doolittle showed that between 2010 and 2014, the national unfounded average for all police services for sexual assaults reported was 19%. For Waterloo Regional Police, it was 27%. In January 2018, Sarah Castleman, who was the head of the Sexual Assault Support Center in Region of Waterloo, helped write an open letter to Chief Larkin. In it, she states, "The police services lawyer very strongly denied the allegations. If there are survivors that are listening, how safe do they feel in coming forward? Not only that, how do female officers feel when they see that Sergeant McInnes from the Toronto Police Service was charged with Police Service Act charges after she filed her human rights complaint? There has to be an acceptance of what is wrong within our police services if things are ever going to improve. Empowering the people who are causing the toxicity that is prevalent in policing is an obvious move in the wrong direction. Until police officers can be protected under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, we cannot allow Bill 175 to pass and give more power to chiefs of police who are currently in denial that any problems exist. The bill will only serve to push more good people out of the profession." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donovan. We'll begin with the PC side. Ms. Scott.
Thank you very much for appearing here again this week in committee and for filling in for Ms. Rivers. So please pass on that we hope that she is feeling better.
Will do.
I want to highlight a couple things that you've said. Maybe just give us a statistic of how many, if you have it, but you have in general, I think, terms, how many women actually enter the police force, but how many women actually leave, some type of reference so that the committee can understand.
That would actually be a nice statistic if it was ordered to be produced by police services, because I know I see a lot
from your knowledge, yeah.
I was one of 8 recruits when I was hired that was female. So it's pretty typical that there's 1 or 2 females in a recruit class, which is below our 20% that we have now. So I think there's fewer women applying, and I do see a lot of women that are qualified leaving long before retirement. So we need to start looking at why are we not keeping them? I have my own thoughts on that, but also why can we not recruit them? Why are we not, attracting them to the profession? It's what they see, it's what they hear. It's not an appealing profession to be a woman and be a minority in the service.
Okay, something we definitely need to look at. And also, I want to talk about the fact that this legislation can give new powers to police chiefs. You have the example of Ms. Rivers, who suffers from PTSD, and that they will have then the powers to terminate them.
Yep, I think it's evident in Sergeant McInnes's case, where she came forward with a human rights complaint, and she then faced a Police Service Act charge and had to surrender time through an informal process. Because the chiefs are afforded the ability to do an internal investigation through a chief's complaint, they can charge an officer criminally or through the PSA, and they can do so with no oversight. In my case, I reported corruption. I faced 8 Police Service Act charges under investigation. The women in the class action lawsuit have been threatened with Police Service Act charges because they took photocopies of their notes, which are evidence in the civil litigation. They didn't do anything wrong, but they're being threatened with these charges. It's because of the power that is afforded to police chiefs.
Okay.
About a minute.
Okay. No, go ahead. Did you have anything?
Well, under the laws, okay, under the bill as it is written, am I correct in understanding that someone on the police force suffering from PTSD, disabled, could actually lose their job?
The way it's written currently, there would be a hearing and there would have to be evidence from 2 medical professionals. So although having it in there, period, is a negative thing for police officers, at least under the current Police Service Act, there is a formal hearing where the evidence of 2 doctors would be presented. That's been removed in the new bill.
So they wouldn't need that I mean the new bill. So in the new bill, it would be much easier to dismiss
Yes.
that officer.
It's on the opinion of the police chief and the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's
Let's
gotta
get to Mr. Nashak, the NDP.
Thank you very much, Chair. Under those same parameters, is it not conceivable that an officer could be terminated with, rationale of not being able to fulfill their duties because of pregnancy?
Yes. I believe it's worded as a medical disability, whether that's physical or mental.
So, do you think that should change?
I think the ambiguity in this bill needs to change in several sections, but absolutely for that section, yes, it
And
does.
how would that not be a human rights violation?
It's carefully worded that it has to fall under the guise of the Human Rights Code, but I know there's already case law saying that occupational health and safety doesn't apply to police officers because the PSA is given so much leverage as an employer-employee contract, and it oversees how we're treated as employees. And until the public start to realize how poorly we are treated as police officers, that's the cause of a lot of problems happening on the road. You have officers that won't admit they're suffering from PTSD because they're afraid to lose their job. So what are they doing when they're faced in a stressful situation on the road? They're doing the best they can, but it's not good enough.
So we extended as a province and as a government, we extended PTSD presumptive legislation to first responders, yet are prohibiting them from actually, or disincentivizing them to actually utilize those services.
Yes.
Yeah. How is that any measure of progress at all?
Right, it's not.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that you want to add to your testimony and your submission here?
Just for those who weren't here last week, I did present last week, and my presentation was all around how I came forward to report internal corruption, and I faced an investigation myself. So the chief targeted me. I was facing 8 Police Service Act charges. I was constructively dismissed. I reached out to the Human Rights Tribunal everywhere I could, and no one would help me. I eventually resigned, and now I'm on a campaign to try to make positive changes.
And are you involved in a class action suit?
No.
Are you involved in
I
any suit?
chose not to so that I could actually speak about my experiences.
Really?
Otherwise, I would be pinned under the PSA, I would be silenced, and I chose to leave so that I could share my experiences to make a positive change.
So your whistleblowing, as it were,
Yes.
was never followed up on at all, and
No,
you
it
were
cost me
just
my job.
Cost you your job.
And the way the bill is written now, that would happen to the next person that tries to do the right thing. They're going to be targeted, they're going to be made to look like a criminal. They have the power to do a lot of things behind closed doors, and I'm trying to expose that. And I'm happy to be here again to share my experiences and have people listen. I think it's a matter of time before more people start to listen and then things start to change.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nashak. The government side, Ms. Wong.
Thank you very much, Ms. Donovan, for being here again. Please pass on our sadness to hear Ms. Rivers not here today
I
to
will.
do her
Thank you.
presentation. Is there any possible way for you to share what you just read to us from Ms. Rivers so that we could have it for?
Yes, it will be in the transcript. I'll be
Okay.
sending it in.
So just to go back to your concerns and comments, I hear your concerns about the power of the chief of police, and you want to not, for the governor not to pass Bill 175. We have consistently heard from other witnesses do want this bill to be passed. So I want to hear from you in terms of, because I don't think you mentioned too much about the whole issue of training and requirements for the officers, in terms of Police Services Board, the training for the members of the Police Service Board, the issue of oversight, and how would that help women officer? Because I hear there's concerns, not just this week's presentation, your presentation
Right.
last week, about women officer, not just in the Waterloo region, but across Ontario.
Well, a perfect example of that is my experience. The way I reported the corruption to my board initially because I wanted them to know what was happening at the service. They're the oversight body. Instead of listening to my concerns, they allowed the service to come after me punitively. I brought it to their attention that was happening, and they did nothing to stop it. So then after my 14-month constructive dismissal and I resigned, I went back to the board and I sat at the table and I told them, I'm starting my own business. I know the training that you need to obtain as board members. I am working on curriculum to train you so you're up to date on your authorities so you can enforce your authorities. And I haven't heard anything from them. There is absolutely no desire to move in the right direction. It's always been status quo in policing, and you can ask any police officer that. They're going to tell you for 30 years it's been status quo. You have a good idea for positive change, and no one wants to hear about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong, and thanks to you, Ms. Donovan, for your deputation and
Thank
your
you.
presence.